So here's a conundrum for you. You like a slick, large screen device like the Galaxy S8, but you also like a physical keyboard, just like a Blackberry, but you really can't get both. So this is Samsung's solution to that conundrum. And of course, that comes with some software tweaks and compromises, which we'll get into. So this retails between $49 and $59, but of course it does go on sale, and it's available for both the S8 and the S8 Plus, which is the version we're going to take a look at today. So really, this is both a case and a keyboard for the Galaxy S8. It provides plenty of protection to the back of the phone and the sides of the phone while leaving the buttons free to operate easily, along with all the ports on the bottom and the top. Also very convenient is a recession around the camera module and the fingerprint sensor. So it makes it much more easy to find the fingerprint sensor with this case on thanks to the geography around the back of the phone. Now the keyboard is designed to be easily removed and fastened to the back of the case while not in use. Now it's important to keep in mind that you do need the case in order for the keyboard to fasten to the phone, otherwise it just slides off. So how does this keyboard work? It doesn't have any Bluetooth connection, no batteries, no direct electrical connection to the phone itself. It actually uses a pretty old-fashioned method. It actually uses the screen itself. So when you press a button on the keyboard, it actually touches the screen, and that's how it inputs. So that's a pretty slick solution for a age-old problem. And of course, as soon as you snap it on, it automatically resizes the content of the screen to the keyboard. And that works across the entire interface. So for example, if I press hold the home key, this will automatically bring up the Google Assistant. If I swipe down to the notification shade, you can see everything has been resized here. If I swipe down again, you can see our quick setting toggles are now 2 rows instead of 3 rows, which we can swipe across. They've also changed the edge screen, so the handle has been resized to a smaller handle, and you can't resize this. So this will snap back to its original size as soon as you remove the keyboard, so you can see it's much bigger here. As I put it on here, you can see it shrinks down and moves up a bit. So that means I cannot modify this. So in fact, if I go to settings here, you can see the option to modify the handle settings has been restricted, so I can no longer change the size, just the location of the handle. Now, one of the things we can do with the Galaxy S8 is rearrange the navigation bar. All we have to do is go to button layout and change it around. Now, if you snap the keyboard on, you can see that it does have a fixed orientation for those buttons. As soon as you remove the keyboard, it actually reverts them back to the default orientation. So it doesn't retain that orientation. In fact, if I snap the keyboard on and go back into our navigation bar settings, you can see that option is completely gone. So you can't change it back until you remove the keyboard. Another thing we lose when we attach the keyboard is split screen mode. So if I go to recent apps, normally what I can do here is drag and drop the app to the top of the screen to activate split screen, or tap and hold the recent apps key to activate it as well. Unfortunately, that feature is completely turned off with the keyboard. Now there are some quirks to know about here. So for example, for games that require landscape mode, I can't use the physical keyboard to input text. In fact, it doesn't bring up a software keyboard either. Something we also lose with the attached keyboard is auto rotate. In fact, I can't activate it at all. It tells me to remove the keyboard. So for example, for an app that can orientate in both portrait or landscape orientation, such as the Photos app, if I go to the Photos app, as soon as I rotate it, you can see nothing happens. So when it comes to using this keyboard, it does take some practice. So for me, it's a little hard to feel because the buttons are so close together, but the autocorrect feature is pretty reliable. I wish they were a little wider as opposed to taller, but of course that's something you do get used to over time. The keys themselves actually have a smoother, softer texture, so they're not a hard, glossy plastic like a Blackberry might be, but they're hard to distinguish, so they're not necessarily as geographic, that's a term I use a lot here, as the Blackberry Key 1, which has a specific texture that allows you to feel for the location of each key, and that's not the case here. The other problem I run into a lot is that I accidentally hit the home key instead of the space bar very often, but again, that's something that will change with practice. But we do have autocomplete up here as well, and it is sort of recessed at the edge here, but it seems to work pretty well, so all I have to do is tap the screen here for auto completion. Of course, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing here, so hopefully I'm not saying anything nasty. Of course, there's a few other basics about using this keyboard. So for example, anything that's highlighted in blue, like the number keys, you do have to press the Alt key in order to access them. But if you long press until you get a vibration, you lock the Alt key so you can input numbers until you're done with that, and hit the Alt key again to escape it, and you're back to your alphabet. We also have the emoji keyboard, so you activate that with the Alt key, and then we can use our on-screen interface for selecting the emojis. And of course, because you can't fit everything on this keyboard, we do have an on-screen symbol keyboard as well, which we can cycle through. Of course, this also works with the shift key, so if you want caps lock, just tap and hold until you get a vibration. So comparing this to the Blackberry Key 1, the biggest difference here is that obviously this keyboard sticks out quite a bit. It's also quite a bit taller than the one on the Blackberry. The other difference here is that we have a backlight with the Key 1 along with a trackpad function that allows us to scroll through the interface, which is very handy. The other thing here is that the keyboard has a bunch of other features which this does not have, such as keyboard shortcuts. The other thing I like about this Blackberry keyboard is that it's much more tactile. I can feel the differences between the keys. That's the way Blackberry has designed them. These are all the same, so it's kind of hard to tell the difference just by feel alone. The other thing is that the navigation keys are reversed on both devices. So we have them just below the space bar on the Samsung, which I don't care for, as opposed to just above the keys on the Key 1. Ultimately, I don't think this is going to convince any Blackberry fans to switch to Samsung with this sort of keyboard, but if you like the physical feedback of a real keyboard instead of poking around on a screen, this might be an option worth picking up. It's not terribly expensive. So that's going to do for me in this quick look at the Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus keyboard. If you guys want to pick one of these up, I'll leave it linked in the description below. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up to let me know, and I'll see you again in my next video.